there is a lot of confusion about the terminology and the nature of the 8th of April, the World Roma Day. First of all, there is a confusion about whether this is International Day or it's a World Day. When you listen Gratan Puxton, who was one of the people present in 1971, he disputes the word international in the Roma Day because international means between the states or recognized by the states. He says the right term is World Roma Day because we want to unite people, Roma people, across the world. So it's not about the state recognition or state celebration or acknowledgement by the states. It's about the intention to bring together Roma across the world. Then, should we celebrate it? Should we commemorate it? Should we protest? You see, there are people who talk about Holocaust or Samudaripen, on Poraimos, whatever term you want to use. In my view, this is not a day for honoring our victims, our ancestors that were killed during the Second World War, because we have many other days, for example, 2nd of August for that, and other days. So in my view, the World Roma Day should remain a day of self-determination, self-definition, self-proclamation. Should it be a day of protest? I don't think so, because protest, again, orients the attention to problems. And to problems, especially if we talk about racism, problems caused by racist institutions, racist politicians. So again, we lose focus on what I believe is essential, which is our own achievement, our own accomplishment, our own self-definition. And in my view, when those in 1971, I don't know even how they communicated among themselves in that time, how they found themselves at that time, and where the courage to come together at that time, courage during the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States. Roma came from different sides together. I don't know even how they ended up in London, all together, how they coordinated. If I remember well the story of where they met, it was some local school. So all that in 1971, when the world was so tense, everything was at the edge of war, military conflict. There were strong political, economic, and cultural tensions. So for me, that's a huge accomplishment, especially after the Second World War obliterated Roma middle class, defined our collective fear of authorities, of police, or anything that has to do with politics, even with public life. So for me, all of them coming in that moment and looking at Israel that existed, was just established at that moment. And they said, we are a nation. In the moment of such a geopolitical conflict, this is a huge achievement for me. So ever since then, everything that every Roma activist, every Roma intellectual, any Roma politician, any Roma journalist, any Roma teacher, any Roma business person accomplished for the community is huge success. Why? Because of the force that we are up against. So on April 8th, we should not protest. We should celebrate. We should celebrate ourselves and every small or big achievement, every small or big success, because that can keep our spirit, belief, and hope up. We can protest every other day. We have a lot of reason to protest. Morally speaking, we have to remember our dead ancestors from the Second World War every day. But on 8th of April, we need to have them as a source of energy, sense of intent, sense of purpose. Once we step in on the 8th of April in any kind of collective gathering, we need to honor and celebrate accomplishments within our community. It depends how we want to look at the parallels between different people, different nations, and us. You are right that Israel and the Jewish struggle was pretty much anchored in the common identity based on religion. And that when it comes to us and our communities, we are Catholics, we are Protestants, we are Orthodox, we are Muslims, etc., etc. But at the same time, we cannot build something we don't have. We cannot start building a religion right now. But our common history, our history of exodus from India to the rest of the world, most dominantly Europe, but also rest of the world. Our history, but also our future, our language, our collective memory also from the recent history, including the Second World War, is something that we have to keep fundamental as the commonality among ourselves. You know, there is this feeling sometimes when you see someone across the street, you look at each other and you simply know it. You don't need to go into what is your religion, what is your name, from which country you are, and so on. You can ask after, but just by the look of the eye, you can recognize each other, sometimes smile, sometimes approach each other, but sometimes just smile and it's enough. So that, I think, is a strong feeling of belonging to something bigger than ourselves, something bigger than our tribe, our family, our subgroup, or our religion. And I have seen this with Roma who are Muslims and myself, or Roma from other country, or Roma even from other continent. I met some Roma from the US. The feeling is common, and it doesn't come from yesterday. It comes from centuries ago. Of course, it's been lost because we are all over the world. But that doesn't mean it cannot be rebuilt, especially with the means of technology and media that we have today. It is clear that we cannot seek visibility only on 8th of April. We cannot meet important people only on the 8th of April. But let's look at the reality. The reality today is that while this is true in principle, we can't get political attention and we can't be on the political agenda because there are so many other issues burning. And at the same time, we still don't have the degree of political power to draw the attention of politicians and decision makers when we want it. So the 8th of April is a symbolic date that more and more people know, including people among the politicians, institutions, and so on. So we somehow use it for advocacy. I understand that, but in principle, I'm not for that. In my view, we need to celebrate this among ourselves, invite them maybe to our places and our institutions. But it needs to be a day about us, about ourselves, among ourselves. It doesn't need to be yet another day when we are trying to get our message across, to promote our projects, to promote our organizations, etc., etc. However, I again said, political reality is that this is the day we can draw attention to our situation. And maybe this is a necessity in the current state of affairs. But that doesn't mean that we should forget that we need to also orient the attention on the April 8th from ourselves to ourselves, because then means that we can celebrate, acknowledge success, and feel important and pay respect among ourselves, not only to seek respect from the Gage in politics or in institutions, and only then we feel acknowledged. Especially because a lot of people organize these events in order to speak about education or speak about housing or any other issue, while the actual significance of this day is about our shared political and unified identity across borders, across religions, across groups, across dialects. And that, for me, somehow gets confused when everybody talks about their topic, their organization, their initiative, their project. We get lost in convincing others that this day is important rather than reminding ourselves that what we do is important and that we have important successes no matter what others say. We have to understand why it is important that we have institutions that we build with our own resources. We are not there today, but I believe that April 8th is also an institution because everybody knows that on April 8th, we need to celebrate our language, our name, our flag, and this idea of unity among the Roma. When this repeats every year, this is an institution, but we need stronger institutions than that because April 8th alone cannot solve poverty in our communities, cannot solve a lack of education, cannot solve a lack of stronger political organizations. So in my view, the creation of institutions with our own funding, with our own resources, as much as we can, because somebody can say Roma are poor, so we don't have money to put in our own organizations. But there are also Roma who are very rich. Plus, we can see we give a lot of money for the institution that is closest to our heart, Roma weddings. So it is not that we have no resources. It is simply that we are yet not ready to put our resources that we have, as much as we have, for our own politics, to put our own resources for our own institutions. As long as we wait for somebody else to put resources for our politics and our institutions, we won't be strong. And that's the reality. That's why the idea of 8th of April, of building this unity, even between people with resources and people without resources. This is how groups and states are made, on the idea of solidarity, that the rich and poor live in the same state. So taxes, and then taxes are being redistributed. We are not there. We cannot do that. But at the same time, there are groups like us that also organize how community can support its own struggle. My message is that if we have the legacy that those in 1971 left for us, we cannot betray that legacy. And that legacy is about us coming together from different countries, from different religions, from different Roma groups, from different Romani dialects, coming together politically, in solidarity, in action, to determine what is up to us to do for ourselves and about ourselves. That legacy we cannot betray, and we should not betray it given the state of the world in which nobody really pays attention to us. Nobody really wants to put their own political or financial capital behind us. In that sense, I think the core message for this 8th of April is that we are facing a very different world, and that legacy is even more important, that we understand not only what we can do individually in an isolated way, but how we can build bridges among ourselves, how we can build institutions and initiatives together, and how we build that for the times that are very hard, but we have to build institutions and initiatives together for enduring, for surviving the difficult times, and trying to do our best for our communities in these difficult times. So for me, that legacy of 1971 about coming into something bigger than ourselves, bigger than our organization, bigger than our community, bigger than our country, and building something that can last, something that we can hope to stay for the future, for the next generation, is the key message of the 8th of April, especially when we are facing the world as we are today.